Welcome to another exciting episode of the Business of Digital podcast, featuring your hosts, Matt Siltala and Dave Rohr. Hey guys, excited to bring you another one of these episodes. And before we jump into our exciting special guest today, I do want to remind everyone that the MarTech conference is coming to San Jose April 3rd through the 5th and Boston September 16th through the 18th. So I would like to recommend you join Program Chair Scott Brinker for a diverse agenda that delivers strategic insights into marketing, technology, and management. And you guys, we always have your backs here. We could save you 15% if you're thinking about attending either one of those. Just use the promo code BIZPODCAST, all one word. BIZ podcast, all one word. So save 15%. For more information, go look at martechconf.com. That's just Martech and then conference abbreviated.com. So, all right. Now that that's now that we're done with that little promo, are you with me, Dave? How's it going? I like to do that too.
I'm here.
Oh man, I thought I was going to get you on mute and whatnot, but
nope. Sneaky stinker.
All right, so I'd like to welcome our special guest coming from at least halfway across the world from where we are. Aaron Friedman, how's it going, bud?
It's going great.
So,
thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. We're excited to have you on the show. And before we jump into like what we're going to get into and talk about on today's episode, why don't you give us a little bit of background about yourself and anything that you think would be interesting for our listeners to know about you.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm Aaron Friedman, obviously, and I am the manager of solution engineering and implementation at SimilarWeb. And we've known each other for a long time.
Never met up in person, though.
One day it will happen.
It will.
It will happen. And yeah, I've been in the digital marketing world for the past 10 plus years. And worked in some agencies in Chicago and moved over to Israel, and that's where I'm at right now. And we're about to actually set some kind of historic moon launch tonight at 3:30 a.m.
Interesting. That'd be cool.
Yeah, so very excited about that.
Very, very cool. I'll have to keep an eye on that. I hadn't heard anything about it, so.
It's launching out of Cape Canaveral. They're sending the first unmanned rover, I guess, up to the moon. And it will be the fourth country to have ever done anything like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Right on. Very, very cool. Well, let's go ahead and jump into what we're going to be chatting about today. This was one of the ones that was set up. Dave really wanted to have you on and talk about competitive research because he likes the insights that you have. And, when we were first getting into this, before we started recording, we were talking about some really interesting things that I think our listeners would definitely love to hear. And so I guess the best way to describe this, unless you have a different way to intro this, but we're basically just going to do a deep dive into competitive research with Aaron. So
yeah, I think if someone wants to hear about how you can do competitive research with a focus on keywords, hit skip. We're going to talk about all of the other data that's out there that can actually, I probably tell you a lot more is kind of the goal. And that's
why
I
can't just analyze keywords, Dave?
No.
You call it good?
I mean, you can all day long. You're free to sit there and look at keywords and spreadsheets and different tools all day long, Matt. But I don't really think your prospects and your customers are really keywords. It's more about everything else that they look at online, offline, and the different audiences. And I think that's the best segue I can do into some of the data and some of the stuff that, Aaron, you guys do at SimilarWeb, but also, with your agency background, you've probably spent more time looking at all of the other stuff online than you probably did keywords. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think that my thoughts on keywords and the kind of data and the trends that you're talking about, I think that's shifted a lot over time. Looking at keywords, I guess more from like an SEO perspective, it's, obviously that's important. You need to know what keywords you're ranking for and what you're going after. But I think as I've sort of advanced in my career, or I've sort of grown in my career, I've started to think of this kind of competitive research as more of themes, more as topics, and you can kind of get that from anywhere. So it doesn't have to necessarily just be one keyword. It doesn't have to be 5 keywords. It's actually finding themes on what's happening. For example, maybe there's a new topic, maybe there's a new product, there's a new that's starting to drive a lot more traffic. Um, and that's, I mean, that is in essence what we do, or what we collect at SimilarWeb, is we're looking at, yes, we have all the keywords, but we're also looking into what pages are ranking. We're looking into what pages are driving traffic. We're looking at the referral sources, where that's coming from, and we're able to identify what types of sites they are. So what categories are they from, and then you can get a sense of who the audience is. So what we're really starting to do is to think, instead of just being keyword focused, but much more topical focused, or much more, I guess, categorically focused. So you understand who is coming to your site, or who would be interested, what kind of person, what personas might be interested in your content, or in what you're doing online.
As you were talking about that, it reminded me of something that's very similar to that, and this was something that kind of opened up my eyes to that many many years ago when I was doing all this for an HVAC person locally. You know, what do you think of when you need a AC person, or my air conditioner's not working, the AC service or AC repair. You're thinking about someone around that. You're focusing on those kind of service words. But one of the things that we put some content out there, some different videos and different content, and one of them happened to say something about hail damage, and we didn't realize there was this whole huge area of people, and I didn't realize it was a whole huge topic of business for this individual, and he really didn't even know it was something that he could be found for or whatever. And I started to get into it with him and talk to him about it, and we found this out just through the data and through the analytics, that that's what people were looking up, and that's what people were hitting the most on his site. And turns out it's like one of the most profitable things for him, because insurance companies, if it's a hail damaged AC, they'll replace it. Usually the person has no cost, and they get a brand new air conditioner, and it's a lot more money for him, and it was a good thing. Anyway, the long story short of it is what you were talking about with it, and doing, like, diving into those analytics and diving into those different topics, and going a little bit further than what you would normally do with just like, hey, this is an AC repair person, so we need to find those kind of keywords. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I do in my role, and sort of what the value that I bring to the company, and to any of the teams that I work with, is that I'm there to bring, my sole job in the company is to help bring out the resources, help bring out the insights into the data that we have, right? I'm not the salesperson, but I support them. I'm not the account managers, but my team supports them. And so what we do is that we do the deep dives into the data, and we help them understand what is the trend, what is that little nuanced piece, but that has such a broad implications on their brand, or on the industry. One story that actually, this kind of goes against everything we're saying right now, because it is keyword focused. But one of the things that I always like to talk about is that we had one of the I was doing an analysis once for a site, and for them, the data that they were interested in is seeing what they were missing, what was some of the um, what was some of the I guess search data, on-site search data more, that was driving traffic for their competitors that they weren't. And so fidget spinners was one of them. People who were searching for fidget spinners, and they lost the trend compared to Amazon, and they never wanted to ever miss out on something like that. And that's what we presented to them, was saying, look, there's a whole category, a new emerging toy, or a new emerging topic that you're not even paying attention to. It's not even on your radar.
Well, it's an interesting, especially the emerging stuff. Having worked with a number of startups over the years, and one of them was a startup with an accessory for an Apple phone, that there wasn't that segment. There wasn't any other products like it. I think someone had just launched like a month or two before them, but for both companies, there was nothing else like it. No one was searching for their product or their product category. Like, so there literally was no keywords. And when you're in that space and there's no one that even knows your product exists, what do? You have to go back to different themes and start looking at maybe different ways to describe your product or your service or what you do. And one thing that's interesting is also to then start thinking about the uses. And Matt, we've talked about this a lot of different times. Like, how can you solve problems for your customers and your prospects with your content, with what you're producing? And start thinking about different ways people use things. And I just saw Garmin, I guess, had a quarter this last year and they crushed it, and they broke out. Aaron, Matt, when you guys hear Garmin, what do you think of?
GPS or watches.
GPS.
Yeah.
They're down 18% year over year, I think it was, in automotive. Every other sector that they have, business line, is crushing it, including, I guess, their watches is crushing it. I never would have thought of that way. But what they did is they took their product, their base service, and figured out every other way that it could be used in different products and different services.
So Aaron, how does someone accomplish that or stay on top of it, or like what recommendations or tools or what would you say to that?
Well, I think the truth is that it actually, whatever tools, as long as you're using a tool, it doesn't really matter. As long as you can get some of this data that we're talking about, or that I'm talking about, even, by the way, keyword data, because even though we kind of started off saying that this wasn't really about keywords, it still can be about keywords, and it's a mistake to all of a sudden think that it's not about keywords. It's a search. I mean, even in all the data that I look at, almost across the board, search ends up being the #1 channel, and I have the data on all the channels, right? So what we're basically saying is that you can learn a lot just by how users are searching, what users are actually looking for. But the key there isn't just to look at any one keyword and focus on that. The key is really to look at all of them and to start finding clever ways of grouping them together, and also seeing what you're missing. So breaking the data up in different ways and looking at them as an aggregate rather than just one keyword you want to rank for. Because it could be one keyword is driving a lot of traffic, but when you see that there's 50 keywords that are related to something else, to one specific topic, and they're all little different variations of it, that's all of a sudden should be a sign. That should start setting off alarm bells in your head.
Okay, so
I'm not sure that answered your question though.
No, perfectly. But so now, like, let's say that you figured that out and that you've branched out into that, other group of keywords or whatever. Like, what are the steps, and how do you analyze what's good to create content with? What's like what the competitors are doing, or what should be your areas of focus? Like, where do you take that next step then?
Well, okay, so I may have a slightly controversial view on creating content part, because I really do believe that content creation, that is the true art form, right? That's the part of it that really takes the, a real creative thinker, someone who can really come up with that stuff. But as far as identifying what you should write about, or what could be, fit within, what your competitors are writing, or better compete with your competitors, the data will tell you that. You'll compare your data to your competitors and see and trend it. Don't just look at it as an aggregate. Look at it as a trend over time. See what's happening. See what that group of keywords. If, let's say, I'm a travel agency and I want to see what flights to Europe are like, or packages to Europe, or somewhere in Asia, or you guys can come visit me in Israel. What are flights like there? I want to see which airlines are trending, or what they're doing differently, or what maybe promotions they're running. You look at that's something else you can look at. Look into see what kind of campaigns they're running. If you can collect the not just forget about the keywords. What about the URL data? Check what URLs they're ranking for, catch the UTMs, and see what kind of campaigns they're running. You know what focus what their focus is. You know what they're onto, and you can see how it's performing. That might have been a plug for SimilarWeb.
Well, I don't know who else does this type of data, But most of my time I spend as an SEO, but I do some social and some paid. And one of the benefits for me as an SEO has always been understanding what other data sources are out there and taking a look at what my competitors or even my own team is doing as far as and you can go into Google, and it used to, it hasn't been live for a long time, but it used to have the double click used to have like all of these breakdowns of sites and what themes and what topics and stuff they were under. And you can still kind of figure that out in different ways. But where are placements going live at, or where are people targeting certain ads that are your competitors? Now, think about ways to either get a guest post on there, or think about why that site, that topic is relevant to your audience, and figure out ways to combine it. And Google Trends has an interesting little correlate tool where you can kind of look for different topics to correlate. And I've built content around this before in the past, where I had a camping client that I worked with. We built content around spring training for baseball, because a lot of people that either live close or not might not want to stay in a hotel. We figured out that a lot of them like to go camping as well. As a kid, Aaron, I think you grew up here in the Chicagoland area. I went up to Platteville with my dad and my brother, and we all went camping for the weekend and checked out the bears for an entire weekend.
Absolutely. Well, I think we went up to Menominee Falls.
Yeah. Matt, sorry, you don't really want to go to New England. It's really cold up there.
Land of champions, what?
Yeah. But think about the content when you're creating it. Don't just come out with another top 10 list, but think about different ways to tie something your audience cares about with something else your audience cares about. And you'll come up with completely different content ideas that none of your other competitors will even think about.
Yeah.
Just using different stuff.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's what I meant by the creativity part, right? If you're coming up with just another list or whatever, top 10, whatever, that's fine. You can, that's easy that stuff's easy. The stuff that's
Everyone
hard.
does that.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that's hard to do is the really like creative, real content that when you sit there and when someone sits there, I mean, you guys know about this also. You guys, I'm sure, have read, just some article online that was just like, that was awesome. Like, that was really good. That was amazing content. Like, I'd love to keep reading that one author. He has nothing to do with what I do for work, but it's just a really good article, or it's a really good, those are the best. And that's the stuff that takes real creativity and someone that makes you think and someone that really that's real content. I think you can be informed by that stuff online, like by the data. The data can give you information on that and it can spark up ideas. But to actually craft something that's incredible is what takes, I think, the real talent for that. But 100%, if and I think that this goes back more to the targeting that you were just talking about, but if you know all of a sudden where your users are, you understand who your users are or what type of user you're talking about, you can start coming up with, I think, maybe crafting content that might be better for that audience versus another audience. And then where to put it, right? Run some kind of, maybe you run some display ads and that's what shows up. Right? You're running a display ad to a piece of content you created, or something like that. I mean, those are all things that can happen, and then the data can tell you not just what to write, but where to put it. One thing that I've been playing around with a lot, I'm always trying to find new ways of breaking our data, right, and trying to do something that we haven't actually launched yet. So one thing that I play around a lot with is we have obviously we have all the website data. But what I'll do is we also have something called audience interest, which gives you a whole list of within the same browsing session, where else those people have gone in the past 30 minutes in that same session. So if you take that data, for example, and then you take the demographics data, or you take the whatever category they're in, you can all of a sudden learn a lot more by saying, okay, well, let's say, out of this group, 60% of my audience hangs out on sports websites, and another 20% of them hang out on car websites. Well, I'm going to guess that mostly they're probably I don't know, maybe mail, which we have that also, but you can start to make some serious assumptions about what's happening, and then not only that, target those websites and run some kind of, retargeting ads there, or whatever it might be, or make some kind of relationship with them just to run ads there. So you're not just learning what these people want, because you're sort of creating and building personas based on that information, but you're also targeting them from um, you're directly targeting them on the sites that they're actually going to.
I like to do something similar with Facebook. So go in and start to create an ad, and then start playing with the different audiences you can target, and see how many people fall into those buckets that visit, or that are, fans of certain car groups, and how many of them are interested in product X or products like X. And note that, you might have 8,000 people that fall into that group that you could target, but there's this other one where if you add something else, it becomes 40,000. Okay, now how can I create content, and what would they be interested in? And suddenly you now have a way, and try to zero in and create different personas that perhaps you haven't had before.
Yeah, and I think oh, sorry, go on, Matt.
Oh, no, no. I was just going to say, I'm glad that Dave mentioned that, because one of the things I was going to say is, I found a ton of good competitive research, by using analytics and tools that they offer, like on other websites like Pinterest. And so the fact that he brought up Facebook just made me think of this, and help and encourage people that your competitive research shouldn't just go as far as like on the website, and that's it, or whatever. Look at everything, because there's so perfect example, David, just a gold mine of information that's out there. But that's all I was going to say.
Well, yeah, for e-commerce, Pinterest, yeah, especially if you're targeting, your wife's on Reddit now. Never mind. Sorry, Aaron, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that actually is, I think, one of the more exciting parts, right? Is when you are discovering a new audience, and you're discovering a new kind of persona that you didn't realize you were necessarily targeting before. That's where things get really exciting, I think, because first of all, you've discovered a whole new world of what you can be doing, and they're new people. Meeting people's fun, and trying to figure out who they are and what they want is, exciting, and catering to that is great. So I think that the idea of playing around and changing the toggles and saying, well, if I add this, I get another 40,000. That's exactly what this is. I mean, that's exactly what this is all about, right? How can I group any of my data to tell a totally different story? I mean, that's effectively marketing, right?
Yeah.
So how do I group any of the data and tell a different story with it? And what does that story mean? And what does it do for me? And that concept can be applied that concept can be applied to anything, not just keywords. It can be applied to groups of website. It can be applied to cars on the street. It can be applied to any, if we're clever enough, it can be applied to anything.
And I think we're going to start running short on time. So I think I'll ask everyone, if someone, a company, you can say whatever kind of company you want, was going to add either a new service or launching a new product, what's one thing you would suggest that they look at that maybe we talked about, make that their focus, or one tool, or one thing that you would tell them to take a look at? Matt, Aaron, whoever wants to start.
I'll let Aaron go ahead and jump in.
If they were going to look at any service, well, I think I'd probably get myself in trouble if I didn't say SimilarWeb.
Okay, Aaron can say two.
So SimilarWeb, definitely. And the truth of the matter is, I'll be totally honest, I actually don't use many other tools these days because of SimilarWeb. So that's a little bit not a great question for me, but
well, how would they? What would one thing be? What would one data point be that they might not think about looking at?
I think one data point that is worth looking at that I don't know if everyone's always looking at is specifically. I think it's just. I think it's core. I think you can learn a lot even just by looking at traffic numbers, right? So if you're able to look at the traffic numbers of your competitors and then correlate that with, let's say, bounce rate, or correlate that with other data points from that, you can learn a lot. And then if you can even drill that down one step further into what those campaigns are, you can drill down into what they're doing or what the audience is doing, if they like it or not, you can learn a tremendous amount about your competition just simply by looking at that. Think about, looking at display traffic, right? You can look
Yep.
at your competitors' display traffic, see what's happening. If bounce rate went up, then it probably wasn't so good. But if it went down, you can then drill into what those networks were that were causing that to happen. And this is one example, but correlating just simple traffic points can tell you so much.
Matt?
Awesome. Hey, that
You want
works
me to
for
go?
me. We are.
Oh, all right. Let me go. I got one thing.
Oh, okay.
Look at Facebook groups that are about that topic. Look at Reddit discussions. Look at any sort of forums. Look at all those different places that are talking about whatever your service is or whatever your service attaches to, and see what questions and problems people are having, and start with the content that answers those as what to get, where to start.
Beautiful, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody, chiming in, and for all those that have listened to this. Aaron, big shout out. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad we finally got you on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And just so everybody knows, we'll link to, the services he's talking about. We'll link to anything else that we mentioned here, of course, in the write-up. But for now, just going to finish it off from giving you guys a quick reminder about the MarTech conference coming up. That's going to be in both San Jose and Boston. San Jose in April and Boston in September. And go and learn more information about that at martechconf.com, martechconf.com, and save 15% off by using the promo code BIZPODCAST, all one word, BIZ podcast. All right, well, for Aaron and Dave, I'm Matt with... we look forward to having you guys on another one of these episodes again and joining us. Bye, guys. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.